Okay, thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. So like Dan said, I'm with the Forest Guild. A lot of familiar faces in the room, but if you're not familiar with the Forest Guild, we are a nonprofit organization based out of Santa Fe. We are national, but we're small, so we have about 700 members across the country who are practicing foresters, and they practice ecological, social, and economic responsible forest management. But today I'm going to talk about the Fire Adapted Community Learning Network. And just real briefly, what is Fire Adapted Communities? We heard this morning about the National Cohesive Strategy, why a learning network. A little bit about the two learning network hubs in the Southwest region, and then trying to realize fire adapted communities on the ground, just some experiences from the last 2 years of trying to do this. So what does it mean for a community to be fire adapted? And I think there's a lot of different ideas about this. It's a national strategy, and so it means different things in different places. But briefly, fire adapted communities is not replacing Firewise or Ready, Set, Go or any of the other good programs that are already in existence around the country. It is an idea, it's a concept, it's something to work towards. And so text-heavy slide, warning. But the concept is that the communities recognize that they live in a fire-prone ecosystem, and they take steps to prepare, mitigate, and be ready for when a fire comes. And ideally, when the fire comes, they recover quickly and are resilient to these types of events. Two websites. Fireadapted.org is from your Firewise folks, your National Association of Fire Chiefs, I think. And so that's one resource. Another one is FACNetwork.org. That is the website for the Fire Adapted Community Learning Network. I know it just rolls off the tongue, but you'll get the hang of it. So FACNetwork.org, I'm going to show some screenshots of that website. If you're thinking about working with communities more as part of your job, I know there's a lot of fire managers and regulators in the room. Definitely visit that website, but the best thing to do is just to sign up so that when there's a new post, it's kind of in a blog format, it just comes to your inbox and you can check it out if you want or delete it. So the folks who put together the National Cohesive Strategy, you heard this morning that it was about a 5-year process. They put fire adapted communities right up there as one of the 3 main things, but there wasn't really a clear path of how to realize that. And some people may say, well, we don't have fire adapted communities. We have communities that maybe once had a fire culture, and we have communities that never had a fire culture. So how do you get going? How do you get down that path? So the basics, it starts with homeowners recognizing the risk they live in, practicing Firewise, moving to groups of homeowners, communities, subdivisions working together. Using the existing tools out there, and I'll highlight in the lower left-hand corner, there are some apps for the public information officers out there that you can give to homeowners that are apps for smartphones that help people be prepared for when incidents happen. And so those are useful, relatively new tools out there. So, Fire Adapted Communities promotes the existing good programs out there like Ready, Set, Go. Fire Adapted Communities recognize the ecological context in which they live. This is from Colorado Springs, this picture. This picture is not from the southwestern region, this is from the southeast, but the idea is that to realize the reduced risk for living in these beautiful places that have fire-adapted vegetation, they're going to support active management of their lands, and they're going to tolerate some amount of smoke to see that healthy landscape so they can realize reduced risk. And so this is a prescribed fire going on in the southeast, and the school bus is going to school, and it's kind of a regular day. This is kind of an ideal, maybe. So just to kind of flush out fire-adapted communities a bit more. It starts at the home, but along with the home come architects, landscapers, realtors. There's a whole suite of people out there connected to the issues right around the home. It's arborists that can help do home ignition zone mitigation. Moving from the home, you have collaborative partnerships. People have talked about them already here today, working across jurisdictions, broad groups of folks working together to develop the plans. It's a little bit off the screen, but involving your local governments and planning agencies. And Mark Myers mentioned this, connecting with your local volunteer fire departments. They're your best resource oftentimes when you're engaging a community. I learned that. It took me 2 years to learn that lesson. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. Business resilience. Your businesses need to be thinking about this too, whether they're businesses that rely on the outdoors or tourism or the view shed. And finally, a lot of the folks in this room are in this last healthy forest land management side on the perimeter of our communities. Sometimes it's not as clean cut as this. A lot of times the land that you guys manage is enmeshed within these businesses and homes. This is kind of a clean cut scenario. And so thinking about fire adapted communities resilience is really important. At the end, I'll show a brief snapshot of a tool that Fire Adapted Community Learning Network is promoting called a self-assessment tool, and it's something we're trying to use right now with communities in northern New Mexico. So a lot of you have seen this slide. This is the sunset slide about fire adapted communities, and so the idea being you have to have all of these things in place to realize a fire adapted community. I like to think of it that you have to have these things in place, but then you also have to constantly evaluate if they're the right thing for the right place and the right time. So it's a continuous learning process. It's not a static thing. You don't get to check something off and move on completely. So here's our National Cohesive Wildland Strategy. Wow, the colors are a little funny here because you should be able to see 3 circles like a Venn diagram. But anyway, this is the National Cohesive Strategy in an image, and here's the vision for the century. I'm sure a lot of folks in this room recognize and know about this. But I think that one of the strongest things of the cohesive strategy is that it has communities right up there with the land management objectives. So why a learning network? So folks that were in the room putting the cohesive strategy together realized that there wasn't a clear path forward to, you couldn't just say, create fire adapted communities and it shall be done. You have to kind of work towards it. And so we're pursuing a learning network strategy. And so learning networks collaborate. Collaborate is the most complicated and probably hardest of these 3 things: cooperation, coordination, collaboration. But the benefit of pursuing a route of collaboration is that you have the best results, the strongest relationships, and resilience in that group of folks you've pulled together. Another way to think about a learning network is the scales and how information moves across those scales. So you have, in the blue circle, you have your landscape, your community. Then you have a regional network that may be at a state level or a multi-state level, and then you have the national. And so the learning network has hubs around the country trying to put fire-adapted community concepts on the ground, learn from that, and share with each other and broadly with the outside community. So these are the 18 hubs around the country, and you can see that it's not just the West or the Southeast that has a fire problem. New Jersey has 1 million acres of pine that burns every 30 years, and they have a lot of wildland urban interface to deal with. Same with the lake states. So there's a lot going on. The Texas hub is in the city of Austin, and so they have a very urban wildland urban interface. Here's a screenshot of the Learning Network website. Please visit it, sign up for the email blast. It's good information. There's an outreach and communications tab that has a lot of good tools, and maybe these are tools that you don't necessarily need as a fire manager or as a resource professional in the room, but you can share with others in your community, and you can bring them along for the ride. So the 2 hubs, One is based out of Santa Fe, and the Forest Guild is the hub leader, which is kind of why I'm talking. But there's also the FLAGSTAFF hub, and the leader for that is the Greater FLAGSTAFF Forest Partnership. They became a hub this year in 2014. And so the Greater FLAGSTAFF Forest Partnership hub leader is Ann Mata-Kalukas, and so she's here, and she also can be someone you talk to during breaks to find out about what's going on more in depth in the FLAGSTAFF area. You can see they have about 20 years of experience and a lot of fire experience, as we've seen just since lunch. A lot of learning that's been happening over the years with the Greater FLAGSTAFF Forest Partnership. And some of the things that they're focusing on this year, which is their first year as a Learning Network hub. And so there's also the information fair on Saturday, where there's other opportunities to engage and talk one-on-one. So one way is that the hubs are interfacing with the Fire Science Consortia is that we had someone from the Forest Guild, Meredith, go out on the post-slide fire field tour, and she did a write-up for the larger FAC community, Fire Adapted Community Learning Network group. And so it's on the webpage, and the Fire Science Consortium has all these tools post-event up there on their website, which is great because when you talk to folks, fire departments, volunteer fire departments, you can point to them to all these resources on the web. And we tried a new resource. I don't know if it's the best one, but through Google Maps, you can create a virtual field tour. And as you click on the links in this Google Earth browser, you can learn about what happened. And so it's just a way to, Fire Adapted Communities is really focusing on sharing information and getting information to people who wouldn't normally have it. So this is just one tool you may want to think about in your home landscape. So every community is unique. There are homeowners that can pay to have their home ignition zone fully treated, and there are homeowners that are going to do the work themselves because they don't have the cash on hand to do it. And so we have to recognize that solutions are going to vary and need to be changed from place to place. The New Mexico hub, these are some of our core partners that we started with. The focus is on north central New Mexico. But we're looking statewide for successes and lessons learned. So we started in 2013, and we got on local radio. We talked about it with county commissioners. We helped with a conference like this. We set up our website, fireadaptednewmexico.org. And if you're a New Mexico person, please go to fireadaptednewmexico.org. and surf around and tell me what you think. And if there's things you'd like to see on there, let me know so we can make that happen. So I'm not going to do this because this requires I'm not going to do it anyway because it takes too much time. But one of the things we did in 2013 was do a prescribed fire training exchange with Nature Conservancy guidance on state land office land with Mark Myers, who is here. And we learned a lot by trying to put fire on the ground in the wildland urban interface. We had faced a lot of resistance from the public. We did pre-burn public meetings and post-burn field meetings both years. We've done this in 2013 and 2014. And you have to kind of learn by doing. You have to put the practice on the ground. And the first year, I'll give one little anecdote. A local resident was quoted in the paper as saying, I don't trust these guys. I went out and I bought $1,500 worth of hoses and firefighting equipment to protect my house from this prescribed burn. And, so that was a pretty powerful statement. This year, he comes back to the pre-burn public meeting and says, well, I guess it went okay. I see a lot of, animals in the burned area. And then when we mobilized for the burn, he comes in with another volunteer firefighter and said, hey, can we help out? What do you need us to do? And he had boots on and greens and yellows. And we said, well, we need more public information going out into the community. Can you drive around the community and talk to people, and here's some information to hand out? And so he became our volunteer public information officer for the burn, which was really cool. And then at the post-burn public meeting, he kind of totally got sold on the Kool-Aid we were selling, and he volunteered to take photos every season from repeat photo points from our burn site so that we could have kind of a long-term snapshot through all the seasons. So it was a really nice turnaround. This is 1 year post-burn from our first year. So, as a hub, we're trying to do lots of things with the resilience workshop that the consortium put together. We kind of had a lot of success in the press. The press seemed to latch on to the concept of fire-adapted communities. Already, we've done a lot of these things. We had a really successful peer learning workshop in Taos a few weeks ago where we gathered folks together from fire departments, from Firewise communities, large landowners, and sat together in a room and really tried to problem solve and figure out what are the things we are doing and how can we help each other. And it was a really successful day. So one of the things I'm trying to think of around the state is what are outside the box ideas that we could be doing? And New Mexico has had quite a few power lines that have started fires. You may have heard this. And here's one potential solution that state forestry is working with a landowner on in the Las Vegas, New Mexico area. And so they said, well, if I have this risk on my private land of a power line starting a huge wildfire, maybe there's something I can do about it. And so they did this. And up close, it looks like this, and it's a pretty big cut, but they want to reduce that risk. And as a private landowner, maybe this is one solution to think about. We have another project in McKinley County, working with 2 different communities, and we're trying to integrate this with a CFLR project, one of those 23 national projects. So we're trying to work on the private side of the fence to complement the work happening on the Forest Service. This is the Zuni Mountain Collaborative Forest Landscape Project in the upper right-hand corner. And so we're trying to work with the communities that surround that and are still in the landscape. So here's just a little slideshow. I don't have any data on how much particulate matter we put up in the air. But this is our little 260-acre burn in the Black Lake Wildland urban interface on state trust lands. This is about 5 miles north of the burn by Angel Fire. The ski resort is immediately to the left. Oops. Thought I missed one. Nope. So we were, this is just smoke from blacklining. Again, blacklining the perimeter. It's our local fire chief out there. We had a great relationship with the local fire chiefs this year. They invested a lot of time from themselves and the volunteers and their apparatus involved in this collaborative burn. Here we have a member from the local media out there on the perimeter doing an interview and learning about fire. So we dressed him up in PPE and brought him out there. And here's the interior ignition day. This is from the community of Black Lake. The volunteer fire department, the Black Lake Station, is right next to that storage building. And they have a sign on the outside of their fire station that says no burning. But we had them out there helping us with the burn. So it's nice. I mean, they really concerned this is their backyard, even though it's state trust lands. But we're really kind of trying to change the culture here. And so as you get closer, you can see what 250 acres, small beans, looks like. And here's from the mixed conifer edge of that unit. And trying to mix in fuels reduction with, ecological attributes, putting fire in aspen. And that's probably the worst of our smoke got over the 3-day burn period. and it went in the direction we wanted it to. There were some communities in that direction, but they knew about the project, and they called and said, "Oh, is that what I heard about? Oh, that's what it is. Okay." And that was Hidden Lake. So there's lots of different things fire-adapted communities do. Here's local youth working on a youth crew reducing fuels in a community. This is with our Youth Conservation Corps crews. Here they are reducing invasive plants, trying to reduce that fire risk they contribute. Here they're selecting trees for leave trees. He's not choosing that as a cut tree. But again, we're having youth work on Forest Service lands in communities doing this type of work. And here we have Lorenzo, I believe, might be in the room, when he was at Highlands University putting fire on the ground and teaching college kids about being good stewards, being fire managers, and taking care of the land. And here is a snapshot of the self-assessment tool. It looks like a lot of fun. And as I see a lot of kind of federal land managers here, if you're working with communities, think about broaching this topic. This is you don't just sit down once and do it. You kind of sit down with your community. Maybe you bring the volunteer fire departments to the table, and you start working through this 20-page workbook to see where are their strengths and where are the areas they can improve to become more fire adapted. And so the New Mexico Hub is working with a handful of communities trying to test this out. And I believe it's also on facnetwork.org if you want to download it.